Hello and welcome to Wide Angle. It has been a fortnight of a carnival of everyone looking east. Professor Sriram Chaulia from the Jindal University. Everyone's looking east, and so are you, gentlemen. The Prime Minister spent the last 10 days in Myanmar, then he moved on where he met bilateral, then he had Aung San Suu Kyi, then he had ASEAN, then he moved on to Australia. In Australia, there was in Brisbane, where there's a G20 and now bilateral, and of course the big gala show, and then he will move on before the week is out. He will have done Fiji. Professor Chaulia, on the one hand, we are talking about, the Prime Minister is talking about the Asian century, right? Let me go to a very basic. You heard Ambassador Prabhat Shukla, you heard Zorawar. China somewhere lurks. This is blah, 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 but China. Can there be an Asian century without there being trust between India and China?
I think it's feasible to some
without
extent.
Having an Asian century without trust between these
because
two?
we are talking about a multipolar Asia and a multipolar world, right? So when we say multipolar Asia, it means that we will be our own power center, and at the same time, in some ways, we cannot avoid competition with the Chinese. Because at the end of the day, if we start industrializing as Mr. Modi wants us to, eventually we are going to be in search of the same resources and the same minerals, and we already are to some extent. So I think, see, we should be living with the idea that this whole bhai thing is over, but at least let's now have an accommodation so we avoid war and major conflict. But I think underneath that threshold, we'll continue to have struggles and tussles of spheres of influence and so on, because historically great powers have always behaved that way. And the Chinese often try to stymie us at various forums. And so I think it is obvious that...
Like example, for instance?
The Asian Development Bank was going to give us a loan for developing our northeast, and the Chinese were trying to prevent it, saying that it's disputed territory. Just to give you an example. So I think we need to be aware that, and then the Pakistan card has always played to try and bottle us down and to keep us boxed in as a subcontinental power only and not a major Asian power.
You've written something, I want to read it out. Without overtly touting India as an alternative to China or the US, Mr. Modi's Act East policy will definitely ride subtly on the sentiment that there is a seat on the Indo-Pacific table which seeks to be filled. Can you dilate on that?
Yeah, the Chinese shadow is so overwhelming in the Indo-Pacific, or the Asia-Pacific as the Chinese still like to call it, that for all the smaller and medium-sized players, we're talking about our Vietnams and Philippines, Japan, and so on, for all of them, even Australia, it matters to have India there. So while we are not going there saying that we are here to crudely counterbalance the Chinese, what we are saying is that we are different from the Chinese in terms of us being a democracy, us having a lighter footprint, us usually not going right after the minerals and the energy, but developing a more people-to-people based civil society and media and journalists and parliamentarians. So we are different from the Chinese, and I think they will welcome us as a kind of a foil, because otherwise what you're talking about is it's a large Chinese lake, as they call it, the South China Sea and the East China Sea and the surroundings. But rather what these smaller countries want is to have India there, and in a way to expand their own options. So I tend to think that we are actually creating diplomatic freedom for all these countries, and we are providing public goods. It's not only the Chinese. President Xi Jinping has come out saying, I have an Asia-Pacific dream, which is to increase Chinese investments in the region and to provide public goods. But can Xi Jinping provide public goods to Burma, for example, which is democratizing right now? I mean, no. I mean, what support can Aung San Suu Kyi get from the Chinese? She'll get it from the Americans, but also from us, So what support will Fiji get from the Chinese? Fiji is now moving towards democracy. So there are many countries there which need a kind of an Indian hand to help them along. And that's what I mean by there is a vacuum kind of thing. It's not really a vacuum, but it's a kind of a place. and we need to be strategically astute to be occupy that and to play our card well. We can't bring the big bucks of the Chinese. We don't have the large military or naval presence there. But at the end of the day, that is how we gain leverage and peddle influence in that region.
I think the Act East, he was quite pointed about the 3,200 kilometer highway link from India, Myanmar to Thailand. I think that is a practical thing. It is something on the table. It's something not only on the table, it's something already happening. By 2018, it's likely to be complete. So therefore, he is talking of something which is kinetic, which is happening. And so it is not so much. So what you're saying, without articulating all of this, that we are there to sell democracy, like the West came here and said, look, take our democracy. We are there in the business of business, and in which democracies, we are a democracy, and people will draw some comfort from
See,
that.
when we train, for example, parliamentarians of Myanmar, or when we try to help Thailand for restoration of democracy in our own small, subtle ways, by training some of their media persons, this is where I think we are different, you know. I'm not saying we are anyway equal to the Chinese.